I'm visiting with FMC, and first of all, tell me your name, what you do for the company.
So my name is Schrage. I'm the technical service manager in the Western Corn Belt. So that would be, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, and Kansas.
Well, let's talk a little bit about strategies to reclaim your fields from weeds, because we've had a big deal with prevent plant acres, for example. How's that all playing out?
Well, so it's really a two-aspect issue. So when we consider, yes, lots of preventative plant acres, lots of those weeds went to seed, contributed to the seed bank, and so we're going to want to be very aggressive with our residual strategy coming up in 2020. But it's also an issue where a lot of folks have been relying on the low volatility post chemistry. So your dicambas, your 2,4-Ds. The issue is a lot of those are not so efficacious on certain weed species. And so I think what we're going to have in 2020 is not just a insurgence of a lot of weed populations, but also a more diverse one. And so it pays to have something that is broad spectrum and long residual.
So how can growers, what are the things that they should be doing at this point? Granted, some of them still have some harvesting to do, but to get themselves ready to take control for the next new season.
Well, if we have successfully got the grain in the bin and the harvest is completed, there's always a good strategy with implementing a fall applied residual herbicide. As we get further west, where we have early emerging broadleaves like kochia, having a residual product in the soil when those soil temperatures drop to below 55 degrees is going to give us a product that's going to be out there once our weeds start to germinate in the spring. And now if we have a later harvest, which has been kind of the story for 2018, 2019, and we can't do that, there's always spring options. And so whether it's using the Authority brands pre-plant or pre, we just got to get out there and keep that seed bed clean, because relying on a post-only option is just not going to cut it anymore.
Can you have success, though, if you still just do a practice of a post-plant herbicide program?
So in that year, yes. Long term, no. Because what's eventually going to happen is, even if we're getting great efficacy, 98, 99% control with a post-only option, our yields are potentially going to look really great that year. But what we're going to do is we're going to select for resistance, and then we're not going to have those tools in the future. And so I know it's tempting for a lot of guys to look like, well, 2019 was a rough year. I want to be cautious with how much I spend on my herbicide program. But keeping those weed populations low is what's not only going to help our yields, but it's going to keep our land value high.
Let's talk about another topic here, and that's something that's trending in the field, so to speak, and that's been some additional pressure from things like tar spot, which really has been ramping up.
Right. So that particular pathogen really got started in 2015 in Indiana, and we've seen it kind of balloon and mushroom out through most of the Midwest and the Corn Belt. It's not quite in Nebraska and Kansas yet, but it's on the doorstep. And so while we don't want to lose our focus on our big yield limiting diseases like gray leaf spot or northern corn leaf blight, we want to be mindful and monitor this pest. And fortunately, FMC has a compound known as flutriafol that is one of the backbone components in our Lucento brands. And we do have a label for control of tar spot in corn.
How about the fact that we have found BT trait failure and resistance cases popping up?
Well, again, it's similar to our herbicide resistance. It's just it's a symptom of over-reliance. And so what I think we actually have an opportunity here, though, is to implement what a lot of researchers and university personnel have been saying for some time, is let's integrate an IPM strategy that gives us more options while maintaining our BT traits. So when you consider most of our trait packages contain one or maybe two or three of the original BT toxins, well, all of those have documented resistance to rootworm beetles, for instance, to the larvae. And so if we can go in and select maybe a more affordable trait package, go with an insecticide up front like a Capture LFR, Ethos XB, Ethos Thrive 3D, something like that, and then follow up with the foliar application of Steward, which is the best foliar rootworm beetle product you're going to find. Those two in combination can offset the cost of some of those trait packages, and now what we see is a snowball effect where we can actually rotate and legitimately keep an economic perspective on how we're controlling these beetles, and so our BT traits will work for years to come, as well as our other chemistries.
Well, thank you very much, Brandon, for visiting with me here at the National Association of Farm Broadcasters Convention.
Thanks for having me.